Good morning on this daylight savings. We skipped ahead, we jumped ahead, we lost an hour. We're all bemoaning the fact. I could do a whole episode on daylight savings. I won't. I will save you my diatribe for later. Anyway, I'm happy the sun is shining. I get to share some time with you all today, so things are good. Episode 68. Sorry, didn't know if I mentioned that. It is March 9th, and this is Three Things with Ian. On today's episode, we have the financialization, say that 5 times fast, of the NBA. We are also going to talk about the iditarod, that beloved dog sled race in Alaska. And lastly, I'm going to give you what I think is a terrible, great business idea, and we'll end it off with that. So let's jump in as I'm scrolling to my notes. Okay, so any discussion about modern day sports and modern day contracts and the whole 9 yards is really a discussion of big finance. The financialization of the NBA is definitely upon us. We saw this with crystal clarity when Luca Doncic, phenomenal basketball player, one of the best in the NBA right now. He was traded in arguably the prime of his career from the Dallas Mavericks to the Lakers. He was due a $345 million contract extension, plus a web of restrictions and some uncertainties meant that we finally saw, this is a historic event, we finally saw somebody traded in the peak of their career, player for player. Doncic is now a Laker. Lakers are doing really well. But why was he traded? It was finances. The NBA is a capped sport, which means it has a salary cap and luxury tax and other aspects that prevent, limit, and severely incentivize teams to not spend as much money as they can, right? So baseball, MLB, doesn't have these restrictions, which is why you saw Juan Soto sign like a $2 billion deal, something just ridiculous. The NBA gets very complicated. Players, owners, anybody involved in the sport at the higher level now needs to understand in phenomenal detail salary cap and other aspects of economics that they just didn't need to know about previously. The collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, is a 667-page behemoth. So what else? What does this do? Well, it does a couple things. It makes draft picks sort of the commodity. The gold, the platinum, the highest levels, the highest level commodity right now in the NBA is draft picks. Because the NBA, like other sports, significantly deflates the salaries of rookies, right? So you have teams paying a LeBron James $50-60 million a year, and then you have a bevy of players at the very bottom. Probably the next 7 players collectively are not even making $50 million. It's very valuable if you can have good players on cheap contracts, right? This is kind of the extension of Moneyball, where Billy Beane handpicked players that he could pay very little holistically, and they had very small bit roles, but holistically he built a powerhouse team without the need for massive contracts. So that's why in the NBA you see trades where it's one guy for 6 draft picks. That's a 5. They do that because they need to hold on to their top 1 or 2 players, and the rest of the roster needs to be commodities that they can pay a lot less, and they can kind of bank on them. So it's really not what can you trade for instead of who these days. So assets are younger draft picks, which means if you trade a player that makes $10 million, you need to get a bevy of players. I say bevy a lot today for some reason. You need a lot of other players to kind of make up that difference, right? And the reason why trades at this level are so rare is because everything needs to line up, right? Luca Doncic and the Lakers, and then Anthony Davis and the Mavericks, when they traded, everything had to line up in a perfect sort of crystallization of a multitude of factors. And that's pretty rare. That's pretty rare right now. So we haven't seen a lot of blockbuster trades because the financialization of the NBA is so tight right now. So they're actually thinking of making more penalties to the NBA, which would even further complicate this story. But what does it mean for basketball? What does it mean for fans? It doesn't mean a lot in the here and now. It just means that there's so many weird considerations. And right now, draft picks are so valuable that you were going to see teams hoarding draft picks for the purpose, two-pronged purpose. One, they could rely on those as the backbone and the rebuilding of their team, or they could send those draft picks as a bundle to another team for a quote-unquote all-star player, like a 6-for-1 deal. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of where the NBA is at. We are at a point where we have a 700-page document outlining all the different restrictions and de-incentivizing big contracts at the expense of smaller ones. So, number 2 story for today, we have the iditarod. This is one of those things that you think about maybe for a week, every couple years, every year when it kind of rolls around. This is obviously the long-distance sled dog race held in early March in Alaska. It travels from Anchorage to Nome. Mushers, that is the guy, could be a gal, and a team of between 12 and 16 dogs, of which 5 must finish the final leg, cover this about 1,000 miles, and I'll talk more about that later, in between 8 to 15 days. So, what's cool about this is obviously there's so many variables at play that your winning time of 10 days, 9 hours might be broken the next year by 2 days because of weather and different factors. So between 8 and 15 days, and obviously historically it took almost 20 days, and then the world record now is a little over 7 days. So there's quite a gradient. Iditarod began in 1973, so it is a very old race. It is essentially a massive deal for Alaska and greater Western Canada. The teams are local celebrities. The popularity of Iditarod is credited with the resurgence of recreational mushing in the state since the 1970s. Obviously, this is a very regional activity. I looked at the previous winners, and either they're Alaskan or they're Minnesotan or Massachusetts, New Hampshire, states that have a healthy, productive winter, right? 50 teams and about 1,000 dogs. So it's not a huge race. Obviously, once they all begin and spread out, it's not like it's a spectator event. There is a famous portion of the race that goes through a downtown. Fans love it. Mushers hate it because they're worried about their dogs getting spooked and losing interest and focus. But anyway, it is traditionally not a race that people watch throughout. It kind of honestly reminds me of like a small town marathon where you start in a downtown and then it peters off into different local pathways, and you don't have spectators throughout, and then it kind of finishes in the downtown funnel, and you get all that hoorah and fan support. I didn't realize that the trail is comprised of 2 routes: a northern route, which is run on even numbered years, and a southern route, which is run on odd number years. Both are just about 1,000 miles. Obviously, there's some changes due to road conditions and just different factors, but essentially it's about 975 miles, which is an incredible distance. It's an expensive race. As with all things, you're paying for veterinarians, the med checks, the checkpoints, the food, the supplies, the dogs, to feed the dogs. It's about $20,000 to $30,000 for a team. Obviously, that's going to be helped by sponsors and different local communities and subsidies there. So each team, like I said, has 12 to 14 dogs. No more may be added during the race, and then you kind of switch off as you give dogs rest. And there's a lot of different factors that go into play. These Huskies, though, are, if we're going to talk about premier athletes, get these metrics. They burn about 10,000 calories each day, which on a body weight basis, this caloric burn is twice that of the Tour de France cyclist, which in my mind is like premier calorie burning. When they're in the Pyrenees, the Alps, crushing those 12% grade mountains, the Tour de France riders are in a league of their own. And then you have the Alaskan Husky, obviously a dog versus a human. I'm not comparing them at a 1-to-1 ratio, but and then the VO2 max, sort of the aerobic capacity of a typical Iditarod dog, is about 240 milligrams of oxygen per kilogram of body weight, which means nothing to me, but it is 3 times that of an Olympic marathon runner. So these dogs are incredibly, one, they're beautiful. they're incredible specimens, and they are doing some work out there, right? They obviously there's some criticism from animal rights groups and things like that. I am not going to say that those aren't reasonable criticisms, but to me, the Iditarod is pretty cool. Like I said, most of the winners have been largely Alaskan, but there was a Swiss man who won in 1992. Obviously, fans follow this throughout the world on the internet, and there's checkpoints, and there's webcams, and there's I guess it's not Twitter anymore. X will have tweets about different things going on. And like I said, Mitch Seavey set the world record in 2017, crossing the finish line in 8 days, 3 hours. And then his son, Dallas Seavey, who between the two Seaveys, they're like nine-time winners. He did it in 7 days, 14 hours, which, like I said, is remarkable because the first couple decades of this race, people were in the 19, 20-day mark. So some serious time has been cut off. Obviously, technology is different. Nutrition's different. As with all things, the more you do it, the faster stuff gets, right? So anyway, those are two pretty interesting topics in my mind. Our third topic today is, I see ads for this all the time now, especially where I am at when we have the snow melting. The gross brilliance of the dog poop picking up company, right? I do applaud these guys, these entrepreneurs, probably less so the actual people they hire to go to different houses and poopy scoop. But yeah, people's backyards are looking like chocolate chip ice cream out there. A lot of dog poop. Quiet, understated brilliance of this business plan is that you can pay for transportation and labor. They're driving their trucks to your property. They are picking up the dog poop. If you had asked me if this business would be successful, this kind of business, I would have said absolutely not. But never underestimate the power of people's, politely, I'm going to say, laziness, coupled with disposable income and just money to burn. So I give props to those individuals who carry on their name badge, pooper scooper. Kind of reminds me of the sandwich artist at Subway. Kind of a funny little nomenclature there. But anyway, the quiet brilliance of that. And my last bit, my last thing, I'm going to get in a little bit of a diatribe here. Can anybody actually see at night when they're driving in a little bit of rain? Or are we just all kind of just winging it out there? I'm just always stupefied by when I usually leave for a place in the daytime, do my business, and then leave at night, and it's dark, and if it's rainy. What's going on here? Can we just make a better system to drive at night? The lane lines are tough to see. Maybe I'm just blind, but can anybody actually see at night? I mean, are we just all kind of this collective myth where we just kind of no one talks about it? We're just we're just going to do this? I don't know. It always seems weird to me with all the technological advances. Yeah, we got better headlights, but then you can't use them because there's cars everywhere anyway. So, I don't know. I'm just ranting, but my feeling is most people, if you ask them privately, can you really see at night? I mean, are sometimes you kind of sure you're in exactly the right lane line or turning radius and all this stuff? I don't know. Anyway, those are my three things. Iditarod dog race, pooper scoopers, and the financialization of the NBA, why it is different now and maybe will get better in the future. Go Celtics. Bye.